Hey guys, so for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the new X-Men film, The Wolverine. It is the sixth X-Men film to be released, but it is also the second Wolverine standalone movie in the franchise. Um, in the Wolverine, you guys, Wolverine has been on his own for a while. He's left the X-Men. It takes place after X-Men 3, The Last Stand, where, basically either the X Men have spread out, a lot of them have died, or basically they're not really the X Men anymore. They're just kind of all over the place, all over the world, just kind of trying to survive as mutants. So basically, it takes place, while Wolverine has been doing this for a while, living on his own, wandering the land, has this huge beard, huge long hair, this robe he found somewhere. Um, and he eventually goes to a bar where he's given to an opportunity by an Asian woman um, that her employer knows Wolverine really well, and you'll see right away at the beginning of the film that, and this is briefly shown in the trailers too, that basically Wolverine helped a Asian soldier during World War II. He helped him survive this big explosion that happened in Japan. Um, and because he did that for him, he was basically the one that helped him live all these years in some ways. He wanted to basically help repay him for helping him save his life all those years ago. So she recruits Wolverine, gets him to where he is, because he's on a hospital bed. He's not doing well. He's extremely old now since he was a young man back when Wolverine saved him. Um, and when he gets to him in Tokyo, Japan, which is where he was, located and trying to recover from, um, he tells Wolverine that, or Logan, as he's called by his human name, that he can basically make immortal. That he can. They have technology built in where he's, being kept before his death. That can basically, help Wolverine live a normal life. He can become an old man. When he gets hurt, he can actually really get hurt this time. It won't heal back. It'll just heal like a normal human body would. So it's basically Wolverine's opportunity to be like everybody else, and not really be a mutant anymore, with the exception of still having his claws. Um, so at first Wolverine's like, I don't really know. He wasn't comfortable with the technology that was there. But there's a series of events that happen. Um, and you'll find out throughout the movie as to why Wolverine thinks he might be becoming mortal again. Um, and throughout the rest of the story, Japan's in complete havoc right now. Everything's all over the place. There's business problems. There's people who are going to be taking over what's left of this guy's after his death. There's this big silver samurai um, robot-like device being made. So there's a ton of stuff going on. Wolverine's stuck in the mix after what he thinks is him becoming mortal again by accident. Um, he has a hard time healing, so that's another symptom of him thinking that he might be becoming mortal by accident again. Um, and he's also struggling to let go of the fact that Jean Grey's out of his life pretty much. Because throughout the movie, he's always hallucinating about her. He's always thinking about her. Uh, in some way, she kind of is kind of his thought process in this film. It's basically, Jean kind of it's Wolverine talking to himself, but Jean is kind of the one who provides the thoughts in this case. Even though throughout the movie it looks like she's kind of laying next to Wolverine in bed, kind of saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? And what about this? And what about this?" And Famke Janssen, who played her in the previous X-Men films, whenever she appeared, reprised her role in this film, almost like a cameo, minor supporting role kind of thing. So it's basically Wolverine throughout this movie trying to learn how to be himself again. He's mortal, and he has to figure out if he can get his immortality back or not, because after finding out how bad it is, he wants to get it back. So for positives and negatives, you guys, I think this film is a very good representation of the Wolverine character study. They definitely tried to play around with the character as much as they could. Um, just a really unique character study. If this happened, what would this? If this happened, what would happen if that happened? If this happened, what would happen? What would be the outcome of that? Um, So just really good character study I thought in this film. Um, there was a red-haired samurai partner that Wolverine had throughout the movie. Not every scene, unfortunately. There was her and another person that I want to talk about briefly here in a bit. But there was one with red hair that was good with a samurai blade. She can foresee people's death in some cases. Really interesting character. She really lived up the scene with Wolverine. Really worked well with Hugh Jackman, that actress did. So I really liked that character throughout the film because she definitely brought life and fun into the movie. The Japan setting and the Japan set pieces are really good in this. If you want a good film that really kind of almost expresses the beauty of modern day Japan, specifically the older settings and things of that nature, the Wolverine definitely does justice to that. There's some really great action scenes here. One scene that I really liked, and a lot of other people seem to like, and it's briefly shown in the trailer again, is Wolverine fighting on a bullet train. Really fun scene. Really represents what summer blockbusters are all about. So if you want some really cool Wolverine action scenes, this film definitely has a ton of them for you. And like I said, look for that bullet train scene. It's a lot of fun in this. There's also a scene at a funeral that's pretty fun too, as far as action goes. Like I said, but like I was saying before with the plot, I liked the use of Jean Grey, how she was kind of the one that helped Wolverine think through things, kind of helped him let go of the fact that she wasn't in his life anymore. Um, so just how they used that character, I thought was very unique, and I was really glad that they got Famke Janssen to play the role again because she was one of few people that I recognized in the movie. Because there was a lot of people in this movie that I really didn't know from other movies, so it was just basically Hugh Jackman and her that I knew. So like I said, I really liked how she was kind of like the representation of his thought process. I thought that was really clever and a way of seeing in his head how Wolverine kind of let go of Jean Grey over time. Um, Overall, there was some predictable and overused plot points in here. When I say predictable, it's like, oh, this character's going to be like this later on. And for overused, I mean, because there is a lot of samurai film elements in this because, it's in Japan and there's a lot of samurai battles. There's a lot of things they use for this movie. Oh, and by the way, we're on the negatives. So the predictability thing and this point are now part of the negatives. Um, but yeah, just a lot of things that I've seen in other movies already, and it would have been nice just to see, something new done with samurais. Another negative thing about the movie is I think Darren Aronofsky should have directed it because I know he was originally signed on to direct this movie, and I know he had a lot of custody problems and things of that nature, and he wanted to direct Noah, which is coming out for next year. Um, I think he would have done a better job, to be honest. I mean, James Mangold did a good job here. I really think, though, if Darren Aronofsky kept to the job of this movie, the project, I think it would have been much darker, more fun. Uh, Definitely would have packed Wolverine to the maximum level as far as what they could do with PG-13. Though this film already does that, I think Darren Aronofsky would have definitely pushed that as much as he could, almost to the point where it's like, okay, if you got to get rid of this scene so he can finally give you the PG-13 rating. I think he would have been that serious about it. Um, this is probably one of the bigger problems they have with the movie. There is a lot of one-dimensional villains in this film, and there's almost too many villains in this film. I think too. There's almost so many villains in the film that by the time you're done watching, it's like, oh, who was the main villain in this movie? So just a lot of villain problems with the movie, just because it's just kind of hard to say and hard to distinguish which villain's more important than who. Some of them don't even get a lot of screen time. So villain wise, this isn't the best X-Men movie just because there's just so many of them, and none of them really work that well. There's some where it's like, okay, well, if you want that to be the main villain, that person has to be more interesting. If you want that to be the main villain, they need more screen time. If you want that to be the main villain, then I don't understand that character enough. And if you want this to be the main villain, then this isn't happening. It's just like, things of that nature was happening a lot in this movie. I also felt the film lacked a consistent tone and central genre. It was just very hard to tell if this wanted to be an action summer blockbuster with comedic elements, if this is supposed to be a darker, more serious X-Men movie, if this was meant to be, almost like a romance film in the sense we went through, a Jean Grey and Wolverine letting her go. So just a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to that kind of stuff. Um, There was also some generic and boring side characters in this. That comes back to my point earlier where I was saying the red haired samurai partner was the really good character that I really wish Wolverine stuck around with throughout the movie. But there was another character that was kind of his way of moving on from Jean Grey. Really boring character. I mean, she was just really was there just to be there in this movie. That's an example of just a character that's there to move the script along. And there were some villains in this film that kind of felt that way to me too. So side character wise, once again, this wasn't the greatest because some of those side characters were really boring to watch on the screen. Um, though this is a summer blockbuster action movie, there was some very over the top cheesy moments near the end of the movie, and I'm actually not the first to tell you that. I did hear from a lot of people that the last 30 minutes did get a lot of complaints, just because the first half of the film is very serious, it's very non comic book like, and then the last 30 minutes really pick up as far as a comic book movie goes. But I thought what was really bothering me was just the fact that it was really over the top, really cheesy. Just your another typical X-Men movie pretty much by the end of the movie. Though that's not a bad thing, I think it's a missed opportunity to do something interesting with Wolverine. So I think that's kind of the flaw of that. Um, so overall, guys, I do give the Wolverine 8.5 out of 10. 8.5. It's a good movie, but there's just a ton of flaws with it. It's definitely a film where even when I watch it later on in later years, just like, oh, I really wish they could have changed that and they could have changed this and this and this and this. It's one of those kind of movies. But you like it anyway. It's just a really, really good movie. But like I said, there's just some flaws in this film that really bother you after a while. And I think if they were fixed, this would have been a really, really fun movie. It almost could have passed X-Men First Class, but it never quite got there. So that's another kind of letdown of the movie. So The Wolverine, 8.5 out of 10 for me. A very good film, but at the same time, don't expect something better than X-Men First Class because I think that really represents what the X-Men were all about.